Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Harsh.
Okay, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we do.
Great. So hello and welcome to the Leading Organization Case Discussion session. This is Harsh Mishra here, your faculty at Quantic. Before Quantic, I have been in the area of entrepreneurship, leadership, strategy, and global business at various B schools in the United States, and have also worked with institutions around the world. I'm interested and active in the startup world ever since the early 90s. I've had a spell as an entrepreneur as well, and had founded a startup school in the domain of entrepreneurial learning for 5 years before exiting. So I have mentored scores of early and advanced level startups and helped build the entrepreneurial ecosystem across the globe in various regions, starting with the New York Mid-Hudson region. So with that introduction, let me pull up and share my screen. Just a moment. So we will begin with the introduction of the case on Dan Martell, a serial entrepreneur leader. In case you could not read the case, this introduction will lay out the basics of the case for you. And if you have any questions, you can discuss them in about 5 minutes. So that'll be after introduction. We have an introduction time. After the Q&A or interaction, we will break out into small groups. In your respective breakout group, you will discuss 2 basic questions on the case. The breakout session will last for about 15-20 minutes. I have provided the 2 questions on the case in the chat box. I just did that. So there's also a link in the chat box. You'd see that as well, that you should open in your browser. It is a Google Sheet with the same 2 questions, and you can make your notes during the breakout session. So that will be kept for record for me, to advance the discussion further in future with the other cohorts. But you will make a presentation and we will discuss that in any case during this session. After the breakout session, all groups will come back and reassemble here, and each breakout group can then present the gist of your discussion around the 2 case questions. And finally, in about last 5 minutes, I will share with you the learnings and the conclusive parts of our session today. I had communicated about this case in the description part of today's session when you signed up for this webinar. So there I provided you with the link to the case. I expect that you would have given a look at this case, read it, and I hope that we'd be able to discuss it properly. So let's dive into the case. We're discussing the case on Dan Martell on the topic of entrepreneurial leadership that is gaining significance in light of the growth in startup world. So our environment is changing and evolving, and so rapidly. You'll testify to that. So there are many pain points and gaps in the market, and the entrepreneurs are finding solution to a variety of problems facing the people of the world. So the leadership coming from the entrepreneurs is quite remarkable. It is a unique brand of leadership that demonstrates a mindset that is different from other kinds of leaders. I'm sure you've been exposed to other leadership theories. Our dynamic and increasingly resource-crunched world much needs this brand of leadership. I'm talking about entrepreneurial leadership. And today's case on Dan Martell will give us an inner view of the world of a serial entrepreneur who envisioned several tech solutions and led his ventures to success despite failures. Is there a leadership model in his life that we can learn from? Story of the Canadian serial entrepreneur, Dan Martell, and his entrepreneurial success journey. He has so far founded 5 ventures to date, and he's onto his 6th one. 2 of his ventures failed and were closed. The subsequent 2 ventures had successfully made profitable exits. And at the end of the case, Dan is working on his 5th one until I discover the 6th. So his first venture, maritimevacations.com, was a website building company for cottage and bed and breakfast services in Canada. His second venture, NB Host, was a web hosting service company. His third venture, Spheric Technology, was about customization of web portals, especially for large corporations such as P&G, Procter & Gamble, and Johnson & Johnson. And this venture was to build software that managed the deployment of web applications, portals, and intranets. So Dan's fourth venture is Flowtown, which was an innovative social media marketing platform business. And you would have read in details about the nature of that. So we're just going to touch on. Subsequent slide will go a little bit more into it. His fifth venture is a work in progress, where the case leaves us. He has named it Clarity, that will instantly connect budding entrepreneurs with successful entrepreneurs for their battle-tested advice and on demand. Interestingly, I spotted Dan's sixth venture yesterday. It's called the SaaS Academy for Growth Coaching. So always out to make success of a new emerging opportunity. You can see that pattern. Here is the picture, Dan's SaaS Academy in action. So the Academy is growing teams of high-performing, what they call the rock stars of SaaS founders. Now, Dan Martell's model of a successful serial entrepreneur. What leadership model can be drawn from Dan's serial entrepreneurial journey? Can it be learned from or modeled after? We would tell you that each venture, successful or unsuccessful, teaches you about new opportunity evaluation. That's what Dan would tell you, that entrepreneurs should look at three interrelated elements for their opportunity selection. One, the unmet need of people, the gaps in the marketplace, and the ability to improve on a suboptimal process through technology. So the usage of technology is quite at the heart of every venture that he pursued. He himself was a technologist. That entrepreneurs should not be limiting their potential customer base and picking too small a niche. It will destroy your business, he would say. Hence, in his model, choosing a big market opportunity is defining. And this is a hard lesson he learned from venture to venture. You know, he had started one with a sort of a regional venture before he went on to a larger venture, which was the national level. But even there, he ran into some high operating costs affair. So he was always mindful of a big market opportunity in the real sense, both financially as well as in terms of scale. He would also say that you should have the ability to separate not only the good from the bad, but also the great from the good. So as an entrepreneur, you should decipher between a good and great opportunity before investing scarce time, effort, and money that you have, right? He would encourage you to ask, is what is desired possible? Very good, well-framed question. Is what is desired possible? Is what is possible desired? You know, so if you look at these two questions totality, you will get a view of his mindset. And the example is, while he considered his user feedback, Martell would form an idea and begin searching the market to see if it or anything similar to it existed. If Martell could not find the solution he formulated, then perhaps this was a gap in the marketplace, and perhaps he could address the need. If the solution, product, or service did not exist, Martell would study its current functionality and consider ways in which he could improve it 10x. So Martell knew that only those solutions that offered exponential benefit could displace existing competitors. So great solutions, not just good, but great solutions he would strive for. Dan had a lean startup mindset, and he would frequently call potential clients, asking them about the type of problems they were encountering. He believed in early and continuous customer feedback, also defined as customer development process. And he believed that a great opportunity only satisfied a customer's needs to the extent that they are willing to pay for the product or service being offered. So this was really at the core of his belief. You know, he would not pursue any product otherwise, unless customers would have really the willingness to pay to that extent that it would turn it into a scalable venture. And when building a team or an organization, always keep the three key corners of talent triangle, if you look at that talent triangle in the case, we will talk about business acumen, domain expertise, and operational effectiveness. So the three sides of organization building. And his expertise mostly lied in being a technologist on the operations side or product development side. So he would draw upon the capabilities in the area of business acumen or domain expertise. He would often outsource it. Then he would also pay a lot of attention on business model. So he would innovate and deploy venture-specific, appropriate business model each time. So you would see that from venture to venture, you'd observe that. And he has a clear, tested vision in mind and be ready to work very, very hard. So he was visionary because he could see far in any domain, any industry. And that's what I would say entrepreneurial leaders are endowed with, that they can see the opportunity far into the space, into time, and then be able to build something. Of course, they're also wary of the changes that will come along the way and the learning that it would entail. So this is Dan Martell's entrepreneurial leadership model. So in his model, Dan would caution entrepreneurs not to think that doing a successful startup is easy. It is not. Like in the case of a startup which had a successful exit, the sheer value often paid to these companies can create a success bias in people's cognitive perception as to how difficult it was for that startup to get there. So they would really look at it very unrealistically and be really imaginative in how many issues may have been involved and what did the entire journey really entail. So the rigorous roads that startups take often are underappreciated. This is a general case. So you look at securing venture-backed financing, working extremely long hours, building a minimum viable product, acquiring proof of concept, and developing sales. These are just a few of the common difficulties a startup encounters. So Dan was extremely familiar with this, and he was familiar with the exhausting process of such a startup life, which often goes underappreciated, especially the ones who are getting into it. They think that they can build and take an easy exit. So there's a caveat out there. And if you look at other aspects of his model, that comes from his character. So Dan was a risk taker. He treated chaos as his normal. He took huge risks during his younger years. However, the risk associated with being an entrepreneur, which may seem severe to some, do not seem hazardous to Martell at all. Because he had taken those kind of risks early in his life. So he would call the risks taken by an entrepreneur worthy risks, right? He was courageous. He believed that an entrepreneur's job is to quietly lead people into battle and victory, demonstrating courage. So no much hoopla about it, but he would quietly lead everyone to take risks and not be afraid, and himself being courageous in that sense. He was also adaptive. A true entrepreneur has a high adversity quotient and a keen ability to adapt to changing circumstances. And he really personified these, very adaptive. So Dan also learned from errors. Like many successful founders, he learned from the errors and took the necessary steps to ensure that he continuously improved going forward. Dan has grown confident of entrepreneurial capabilities over the time. He truly believed that he could turn a good idea into a startup, then turn a startup into a successful company, and in turn make money for himself and his investors. So this confidence grew over time from venture to venture, and that's why he has no two qualms about taking up a new idea, a new venture. Dan values being accountable, and he's humble. So he is no longer motivated by money or fame alone. Of course, it's a motivator, but not alone. His motivation today lies in his accountability that he has for people, specifically to his family, his employees, and his customers. And then, as they say, he is a serial entrepreneur. Once an entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. So Dan was just that. He stepped out twice from good jobs to follow his guts as an entrepreneur. He left his long, luxurious vacations to take up another venture because he believed that he had certain skills that it would be a disservice not to do what he was meant for, right? So he burnt with a sense of mission, make the world a better place through his technology and software knowledge or capabilities that he had. So he was not there to lie, away from it for too long. So he walked away from his even earn-out purchase agreement that he had with Demand Force, and he essentially stepped out 3 months earlier, losing money. But that was not any hesitation for him, because he was really he wanted to go into his new venture, which really required his full attention. Now, if you look at his history and background, Dan Martell, to develop his entrepreneurial leadership qualities, his past and especially his childhood seems highly relevant. So let's take a quick look at it. Dan Martell was born in a small city in Canada, and since the childhood, he was entrepreneurial. So there's one small story out there. Even as a young boy, Martell instinctively noticed and capitalized on opportunity. For example, he would frequently build snow forts behind his home, and would rent them out to his friends for a few dollars a day and make his first profit. And then, interestingly, he was a special child. He was diagnosed with ADHD. We know that a condition that people have. But, it never became his weakness. Rather, it became his strength going down the line. So that was remarkable. And if you look at also his childhood, very challenging. His parents got divorced at an early age. Of course, he had a little rebellious situation when he was 11, because he was not getting enough attention, and then his parents divorced, and he was moved to a foster home, and those kind of episodes. Then he also faced a drug situation, and between the age of 13 and 15, he broke into cars and dealt drugs. At the age of 15, he was arrested for drug-related activities, and at age 17, he was arrested again on drug-related charges. Being a repeat offender, he was sent to prison for 9 months. But that's when the turnaround happened. He decided he needed to change his life and checked himself into a rehabilitation center after coming out of the prison. And the rest is history. He became a successful entrepreneur and had a happy family to which he was totally committed. So you can see, this is the picture, because he believed in being accountable to his family, employees, market investors. So he's desirous of a happy and committed family. And this picture would testify of his commitment. And of course, I learned some other accounts. So he's truly a good family man. He finds as much time as possible away from his busy life. Now, let's quickly look at the ventures. We lost some time in getting this thing going. So his first venture, Dan had bought a computer programming book while at the rehabilitation center, taught himself how to program, and began writing computer applications after computer applications. And he never looked back as a software developer after that. So for his first venture, at his dad's advice, he started building websites for small cottage rental business. Interestingly, he went on to validate his venture idea beforehand as a proof of concept. So very smart thing to do. Before he would really go into it seriously, he first checked their interest. And there, he was flooded by mail and the checks, and the venture basically rolled on. He was profitable in this venture, but soon Dan's cottage website business went under as a new big competitor entered the fray. So this was a national player, and basically he was not competitive. And that's when he learned a very important lesson. that you got to be in a bigger market. Now, if you look at his second venture, you would find that characteristic. So the nature of the second tech venture was a hosting service company. So not making website, but hosting website on the server. So for businesses, and that would be anywhere in the country, not region specific. And this time, Dan made sure not to limit his client base and a large demand for websites as company was moving online. This was building up. The demand for hosting companies would increase, hence, because the demand for website was increasing, therefore, for the hosting as well. But Dan faced a number of challenges. So first was that the entry barrier of capital. So hosting equipment and software were not as common in those days as they are today, which made them very expensive. So he had to spend approximately $20,000, most of which that he had saved from his previous venture onto this new venture altogether. So he went on to build his client base for NB Host. He realized that he was going sideways instead of upwards, purely because the revenue he was making from hosting needed to be re-injected back into his company to cover an increase in operating costs for every new client's website that he did, that he hosted. And the more clients he got, the more time and work was needed to be invested in the company. And that really kept him working round the clock. Something he felt was not the best thing, right? So he realized that it was not a scalable business, right? And he constantly operating in a depleted state inhibited his ability to progress. And he realized that you cannot monetize a good opportunity if that opportunity requires constant support and supervision. So Dan closed NB Host and taking a hit of $15,000, right? Loss of $15,000. And his learning from this venture was grow revenue exponentially while only growing expenses linearly. So, the differential between the revenue and the expenses, this should be growing exponential. Therefore, otherwise is not so lucrative a business to be in. Now, if you go to the third venture, which is Spheric Technology, and for this one, he customized web portals for big corporations to manage the deployment of web applications, portals, and intranets. So now he had a team that completed his talent triangle, the three things in their talent triangle, which is business acumen, operational experience, and domain knowledge. He was good at operational experience or development, but not so much in business acumen and domain knowledge. So they focused on building the software applications and outsource the business related activities to people like you, all of you who are doing, EMBA here or MBA, he would source it to them, right? He would focus on his product development. So Dan and his team at Spheric Technology bootstrapped the company from onset. So they had realized that larger the value added a company can provide, the faster the potential adoption of its product. So a common characteristic of a survivor bootstrapped company. So they wanted to provide a whole lot of value to the company and more efficiently and faster. And that would become the competitive advantage, even for a startup, in the eyes of corporations that he was going to serve, like Johnson & Johnson or Procter & Gamble, as I mentioned earlier. So Spheric's technology added value to its customers at a time when those customers needed it the most. So his clients were these big corporations, and he had created the company which really had no debt. It grew at an average of 152% per year and had approximately now 30 employees. So in May of 2008, not surprisingly, Dan Martell sold Spheric Technologies to Function One, which is a software company specializing in enterprise technology. At the age of 27, Dan Martell officially became a millionaire before he moved on to his fourth venture, Flowtown. So Dan's fourth venture was a social marketing application for small businesses. His software allowed a customer to take any email address and find the social demographic of the person to whom the email address belonged. Remarkable product, right? That he strived for. So a business using Flowtown could then use that information to launch more focused and targeted marketing campaigns. And these days, these are quite common, such products. Rather, we might have gone into a new generation of such products. But in those days, it was truly desirable product, right? So, and this time, if you would notice that unlike the previous spheric technology, which was B2B product, this time it is B2C, or rather B to small business, still B2B, but small businesses. And Dan this time had his skin in the game with investment of $200,000. And like a lean startup created crusader that he was, Dan first tested the market for his product by launching a non-functional demo of their proposed solution. So there's a whole story there, you would have noticed. Through this, basically, he had found a worthwhile value proposition with massively growing demand for social media marketing. So he may have been one of the early pioneers of this technique. Now, of course, many software developers do that. They try to trick their market and really get their feedback, even though they haven't developed the product yet. But he was perhaps one of the early ones. That is the way to build viable products. You try to get early feedback from the market. And Dan's Flowtown now generated to the tune of $20,000 per month of revenue. And soon he had more than 50,000 customers, substantial. Now look at, and these 50,000 customers mean 50,000 small businesses were his customers. So no, obviously, if you look at, Flowtown was created in November of 2009, and in October 2011, so less than 2 years, Demandforce purchased Flowtown. So Demandforce is a company based out of San Francisco, focused on providing small businesses with access to the tools and platforms that large enterprises use to communicate with customers. So the interest of Demandforce and Flowtown, you could see, were aligned, right? They were in similar industry. And so Flowtown basically complemented Demandforce, and that has implication on when they bought this company on the valuation, because if that alignment is high, you would get a better high value. So I don't remember exactly what value he realized, but it was substantial and talk of the town. Now, if you look at the fifth venture, and the case ends with it, Clarity, it was interesting how this idea came up. So the news of Dan Martell's second successful exit spread. Naturally, a flurry of telephone calls from startup founders came to Martell. Right? So Martell spoke to and advised as many, but could not really devote all his time. So he was getting like floods of calls and everyone asking what is the secret, or they had some problem in their decision making and they would want a word from him. And so now, looking at that, Dan's new goal was to help entrepreneurs around the world. And that was the time when there was almost like an entrepreneurial revolution. Of course, that revolution continues to move forward, but that time it was fairly widespread. So scores of entrepreneurs around the globe, and they need advice from successful entrepreneurs. So he considered a new business opportunity that he would call Clarity, a marketplace of entrepreneurs who are seeking battle-tested advice from experts in particular field. Dan wanted to ensure that this solution that he had in mind was not catering to a niche market. That, of course, he was always wary of. But in this case, the market seemed huge, it was timely, and it would be durable because entrepreneurs and their problems and decision-making challenges would continue to prevail. It's not going to go away. So this market is not going anywhere. And that's why he was very excited. And really, it came to him, almost inadvertently. So the Clarity was to be turned into despite this apparent opportunity was there, but it was to be turned into a viable, scalable, sustainable, and profitable business model. He always would keep his eyes on that, so not get carried away, but really assess the viability, scalability, and sustainability of it. And so Dan asked a set of highly relevant questions. He asked himself, would people pay for this? Would there be enough people wanting to pay? Would experts, okay, a participant requests a live transcription by enable. Okay, I have enabled that. So Dan asked a set of these questions, which I just mentioned, like, would people pay? Would there be enough people wanting to pay? Would experts consider shifting their goodwill free calls into an income stream? Would such an income stream be big enough for true experts to bother? Because they are successful entrepreneurs, their time is valuable. If they really systematically as a business devote their time for entrepreneurs, they would want it to be generating revenue for them. So he went on to find out whether or not people are willing to pay for the service before he went ahead and built it. He would always do that. Interestingly, Martell's early user testing confirmed that people wanted to access the tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is the key word, that because you ask any successful person, what is the key to your success? It's not that they can articulate it in one sentence. There's so many aspects of it. They would engage with you into a conversation, because knowledge is tacit. So how do experts really pass it on? What really made them a successful entrepreneur, right? So that is the challenge as a product, but then would people have the willingness to pay? So he considered this entire thing, proposition carefully, and that was his fifth venture, for which he stepped out, took a hit in terms of income, and he was out there. We have completed the introduction part of the case, and the two questions are: one, learning from the case, what objective criteria should a founder evaluate before committing wholeheartedly in a startup? Could there be a set of those factors? What should they look at? What should anybody look at before they go into this intense, demanding work that a startup needs? It's not without it. We looked at that caveat. So that's the first question. How can you be objective, not subjective? Because subjectively, every entrepreneur is very excited about their idea, but is there any objectivity? Is there any real potential there? So that is the first question. The second question is, what traits and learnings of Dan Martell as a successful serial entrepreneur can be emulated by a startup founder? So what is the generalizable aspect? Can we really capture? And there was a slide that we looked at, but then we would want to discuss it further, right? And we would like to get your thoughts on this. So I have posted these two questions in the chat box for you to discuss during the breakout session. Now we can spend some time interacting on the case. Any questions and comments from you? Any thoughts, any questions, any comments? We can spend another 5 minutes, and then we can break out into a group. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. So people are hearing it. Yeah, any thoughts that came to your mind on any of these questions, or any clarification you need from me before we break out into sessions, various groups? We can spend some time discussing these two questions in small groups, then come back here and maybe go through some conclusive part.
Of any recording for this?
Yes, I would have recording. I'll share this with you. Maybe I'll share because I could not run the slides today. Yeah, you'll have recording in some shape and form, because I have 2 other webinars on different timings. So I'll have one recording. I'll send it out to you. Okay, looks like there are no questions. And let me see, we have 10 people. So we can break into 3 groups, and we'll spend about 10 minutes in your breakout session, and then come back and quickly wind up in about 5-7 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, bro.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. Great. So let's just do that. So I'm going to make 3 groups. Okay, I'm opening all the rooms. You can join any of your assigned group, and I'll be visiting you in each group and get a sense of your conversation. Try to make notes. If otherwise, you can be verbal when you come back. Not an issue.
Thank you. Very, very good. Dr. Ash, you're on mute. You're muted. You have to unmute. Yeah.
Okay, I'm saying, is that your name? Understanding?
Yes, that's my name.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I think this name is, I have never heard this name before, but to me, I think this we need the most for today. So you are most needed, understanding.
Yeah, but you made it easy. Yeah, that was very clear. That's why you didn't get any question. Yeah.
Okay, okay, good, good. So yeah, people are coming back. I guess everyone is here, more or less. Excellent. So can each group, either one person, 2 person, just give us a sense of what your discussion was? How did you see those 2 questions? How would you address it? Please volunteer. Breakout room number 1, we can start with.
Probably I can just start it off, and then my teammates can add on later on. So from question 1, some of the objectives we thought it's important. The first one is opportunity selection. Like, you know, you need to know what is the right question to ask, and you need to make sure that whatever question you're asking, whatever solution you are suggesting is actually addressing customers' needs. The next one we thought about is market scalability, that, you know, it's not just a local business. You should be able to scale it to maybe globally. And then the last one is talking about profit. So we got to make sure that the profit that we can make from the business has to be much more than the business cost.
Yes, wonderful. Actually, your second observation, second point is also related to the first one very intricately. You know, if you can ask those right questions, that would be able to put the finger on what is a true market potential. You get the scalability. You know, it's a natural consequence of that. And yes, about the profitability. All 3 great points. Great. Thank you, Angela. Is there anybody from your group would want to complement what you said?
Yeah, Angela is spot on. That's what we discussed. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the second group, breakout session group 2. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I can share for our team. For
Sure.
question 1, we had some pretty similar notes. We said that the new businesses need to be scalable in order to grow. So we were referencing the experience at NB Host, where Dan recognized that he needed to be engaged 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in order to really continue growing. We said, don't limit the market size. You know, don't pick such a small niche opportunity that you limit your capability. We said that the market should be tested and that the team should have a strong talent triangle, the business acumen, operational experience, and domain knowledge. We didn't quite get to question 2, but I threw some notes on after we got pulled back into the larger class chat. I said that hard work, take risks, don't be afraid to leave a failing startup, and pursue opportunities that you believe in the most.
Great, great. Very insightful. And John, those are good points. In fact, you know, you mentioned market testing, and while everyone agrees that, you know, market testing, yes, is so critical before you really go on to expand your production or business operation and go on to big investment, or anybody would want to invest big in you. The challenge for entrepreneurs is they don't have big budgets for it in terms of time, money. So that's when they get creative, and that's what Dan Martell did, by having this kind of website where he would put the product, but really the product is not there, but he would count the number of clicks and interest. So yeah, I think how do you get the market feedback? How do you test out your product? It's quite a challenge for entrepreneurs given their constraints. But nevertheless, it's so critical. So it's both ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great. And sorry, what was the second point, John? You're talking about?
Oh, the second question.
Yeah, second, your observation, you had, oh yeah, the second question you could not understand, you said, right? Something of that nature.
Oh, no, our team didn't quite get to it in the allotted time.
Okay. Okay. So basically, because he had success in so many, not so many, at least 2 or 3 ventures, 2 he failed. But then is there any aspect about him which can be learned or which can be modeled after, because then we can, if we go to the trait theory that somebody is a born entrepreneur or somebody is endowed with the entrepreneurial capability, that does not really help learn entrepreneurship per se. And that's a big question. Can entrepreneurship be learned? That question also comes for leadership, but leadership is over the time. I think there are many, leadership programs where people discuss and they learn and emulate, try to figure out what is that part which is unique, embedded in a person, but what is the extractable part? So the second question was about this. Can we look at, yes.
Yeah, Prof, this understanding. From group 1, we spent half of our time discussing about the traits that got from the Martell and his story. And we highlighted a few, he has a learner's mindset, right? He's able to be humble enough to accept when a venture is not as successful as he would like to be. That's something that is not easy because we all can get emotional about the project. And even when it has outlast its time, we're still holding on to it. So I think that's one. But there are a few others, like his ability to take risks and from his mistakes. Those are skills that can be learned or developed over time.
No, I think I could hear you partially understanding. Your voice was very low. I couldn't hear some parts of it, but I get the gist of what you're saying. So yes, I think that is overall, I think you made a good point and it addresses the second question. Yes, indeed. Good. The third group, can you share your thoughts, any main points that came out of your discussion?
This is Mohammed from the third group.
Yes, Mohammed.
Yes. So the first thing is the objectives. So any entrepreneur should have to find the opportunity. This is the first thing, based on the opportunity, based on the situation, based on the time. And based on the opportunity, we have to set the mind and what kind of products we have to build and what should we get the benefited from the environment, not only for the environment, like how we can make the money. And this is and how we can achieve, is this achievable or not? So we need to analyze this as a leader, what should we can build or innovate in the time fashion. And whenever we need to set a mind, we need a group of team is a group of people, and we don't need talented people. We just need this mindset who has a similar mind and goals. And this is, as a leader, supposed to have that kind of leadership to create a successful group who can have same vision and the success vision. And of course, this innovation is required a business model, and how and what is the time fashion, because as a small entrepreneur, they don't have that much capital and time. So it have to be very small time period, and we have to make sure we have to build this project and the product in the time manner, and we have to explore the market. And definitely we have to have a vision. So if we have all kind of task, in the opportunity, mindset, and definitely have to have it scalable. If we have all kind of things, definitely we can achieve these objectives. And this is actually we discussed. And the second thing is how we learn as a successful. Definitely as a successful, to become a successful, we have to have learn and error. This is the first thing. So we cannot be a first entrepreneurs, and you have to be success. Is very challenging, and then we have to learn from as an entrepreneur. We have first thing is a risk taker. So we have to have some mindset to take some kind of risk, and definitely have some kind of encouragements. Or have some encourage to adopt something. So you have to learn, and you have to be productive, and to create successful team and product. And you have to go with the learn and errors, so that we have to have some confidence to build a successful mind and successful entrepreneur. So this is basically from our discussion and what we understood.
Wonderful. I think I can see several good points, but what really struck me, one was when you talked about the team need not be highly talented, each one of them, but rather they need to be aligned, they should be working for a shared objective, shared vision. That's what makes it a success. And another good point you had there was about the vision as to sorry, my apologies. So it's like opportunity. If we really want to have an opportunity which would have that compelling vision, I use the analogy of a television set, and the channels are there, all wavelengths are there, all frequencies are there. But you need to have the instrument, to capture and tune into that particular channel, so that you become received with whatever other securities that you have that are required. So entrepreneurs, essentially that mindset, that you referred to, that mindset is also about looking at several aspects which were demonstrated by Dan. For example, his learning that you mentioned, that you had to be learning and open, learn from your errors, learn from your mistakes, and be a risk taker. This kind of a mindset of risk taking and learning, that's not easy, because I have seen mostly that people get entrenched in their, heuristics that they have developed, and the openness to changes or learning and even acknowledging one's mistake. Because a lot of businesses, they have a momentum, they do an error and they continue to do it, even if you tell that there's no listening there. But I think he is not discouraged by the failure of one venture to the other. Rather, he's carrying that learning and adapting it along the way, and inculcating that into his own thinking. So this is a very important trait, is that you learn as you go. Rather you have an open mind to capture those signals, like the television set. So yes, very good points, Mohammed. Thank you very much. So I think anybody else has any thought? Would you like to add to our discussion? Okay. Well, I know that we lost a little time there, and otherwise we could have spent more time discussing or hearing from you, and you could have gotten a little bit more time to discuss among your group mates. So let me, so what is our conclusive thoughts on today's case discussion? One is that Dan Martell's model of entrepreneurial leadership can be emulated by entrepreneurs. We identify that there are aspects which can be emulated or learned. Second, stay humble, right? And only humble people learn from errors and mistakes going forward. So only they can turn failure into success, and turning, to use another analogy, turning poison into medicine, right? Because nobody likes to experience failure. But then, interestingly, in entrepreneurial circles, people who have failed, they are considered sort of a repository of insights, why they failed, so it's very different there. Usually in large corporations, failures are because they have a high cost, right? And the business is much more streamlined there. So failure becomes like a blot on a person, or on a corporation. But in entrepreneurial circle, failures are repository of insights, right? So taking worthy risks and managing them to make them less risky. So entrepreneurial leadership is about learning how to manage risks, making them less risky, taking several steps. So that's the art of entrepreneurship, which turns risks into disproportionate success. And then demonstrating your leadership, entrepreneurial leadership, openly and repeatedly. Test your hypothesis product like Dan Martell did. Engage with your market, listen to them, do your customer discovery. This is very important, and creative ways to go about it. So because you're resource crunched, so you cannot run a very expensive market testing, so you have to be creative, low cost, and yet be able to derive as great insights as possible. And then stay committed and accountable to all important stakeholders. This is very important because oftentimes entrepreneurs lose balance, So all important stakeholders, like you mentioned, family, employees, customers, investors, right? So that's where the core values are very important for entrepreneurs, which would keep that balance. And oftentimes entrepreneurs, they are very, very thirsty for success and extraordinary profit, and they can somehow lose track of the values, right? So that also shortens their lifespan, or at least does not give them as much satisfaction, right? In the personal life, you'll feel some sort of imbalance happening. So Dan is pretty good at doing that. So that is something, there's a lesson inherent there as well. And believe in sharing your learning with others. So his last venture, Clarity, actually, he does not want to keep it to himself. What is his secret of success? It's not like a trade secret. He would want to share it. So entrepreneurship, and especially entrepreneurial leaders as such, more they share, more they discuss with people, the better they become. I have seen those sessions where entrepreneurs are interacting. They can never stick to the timing. They get so involved and engaged in it, and people come out of those spaces very, very charged, So sharing is very key for entrepreneurs. So there are several other insights. We could go into it, but we have less time. So it was good to have you all at the webinar today, and we conclude the session here. Anybody has any question? Any closing question? Any concerns, anything? Okay, if not, take care and stay safe. Good to have you,
Thanks,
folks.
Doctor. Thanks, Dr. Harsh.
You. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, John.
Thank you.
Bye, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Angela. Adeline, who else
Yes.
is there?
Thank you, Dr. Tosh.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
Thank you very much. Great to have you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.